Good evening from PLUGHITZ Studios in Largo, Florida. I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we are here with episode 553 of F5 Live, refreshing technology for Sunday, March 8th, 2020. This show is a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. This week, some Philips Hue Bridges are going dark. Online stores are banning products, and 5G is limiting television. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Mixer, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, or Facebook, a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, on the radio or on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are now 3 ways that you can do that. The first is you can join us Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern by going to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us during the show and give your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. Or you can listen on 88.1 WMLD radio in the New York area or through their website Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. Or, of course, you can always subscribe at PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and more. And, of course, find all the ways that you can watch or listen, including all the things I just mentioned. So, Avram, how are you doing this week?
All right. I guess we'll get to this in the Piltch Point segment later, but I am definitely concerned that at some point soon I may be working from home a lot because even though my job is pretty understanding of that, if I want to work from home from time to time, I really hate to do it. But with everything that is going on in the world right now, in New York right now, with coronavirus, it would not surprise me if at some point our company decided to close the office or strongly encourage us not to come. As long as my coworkers are coming, I'm coming because there's no reason for me not to. But and I like to, but it's a little distressing, I think, to me and everybody. But one thing that we'll talk about in my segment are some tips for working from home, and I want to just throw in there for anyone who's listening live. If you're on, I would like to hear your tips for working from home, because I don't have all the answers. I just have some tips, and I myself could also use some advice.
Sure.
Because I'm not one who ends up working from home a lot, and I'd like to, and I have a sneaking feeling that at some point it could be, hey, you're going to be working from home for a week or 2 weeks or something like that, or 3 weeks. So, I'd love to get others' feedback as well.
For sure. And so if you're listening live at f5live.tv/join us, or you're on Mixer or Twitch or YouTube, comment and let us know some of the tools that you have used if you have. If you're not listening live, that's okay. Find the Piltch Point on Facebook or find us on Twitter at PLUGHITZ Live and let us know some of the tools, because you'll be helping us prepare for a possible, or in Avram's case, what sounds like a potential inevitability of ourselves working from home. Obviously, I kind of work by myself most of the time anyway, but I work with other people, and being able to communicate better is always a better thing. So definitely let us know about that. Sorry, I blanked for a second. Also, as a reminder, this weekend, this Friday, we will be at the Orlando FRC Regional. It is assuming it happens, because we've been watching first competitions get delayed and canceled all over the world. Australia has postponed 2 of them. I think we've seen 6 so far in the U.S. get postponed or canceled in the case of First Tech Challenge. So hopefully we will be there Friday, and then we will be right back to normal Sunday night here on the show, which is a change for those of you who have been longtime listeners. Normally, when we do an away show for a weekend, we don't come back to the studio that same weekend, but things are changing because we have new distribution. We're on the radio. So our schedules have to change a little bit to accommodate that. And that's fine because, I think Avram and I at one point were taking so many weekends off, we were starting to miss each other. I think last year we had one block where we had like 3 or 4 weekends in a row we were off for various reasons, and we were really missing each other. So
that's not good. So I mean it's important to be on. Obviously you do the real work, setting up the studio. I just dial in. So one of my work from home tips for myself will be clean up, and then that'll be my contribution to a better looking show.
Oh, I remember. Do you remember when we first, I know this is a little off for a second, but do you remember when we first started doing video and we just had that weird green thing behind us in the studio? Oh, interestingly, the TV that's here that if you're watching live, you can see it, that you're on is the same TV that you've been on since day one.
Well, at least it's flat panel. It could be so long. It could have been CRT or something.
It's not CRT, but it is definitely a bulb backlit. It is not LED backlit. It is still kind of heavy. But we've talked that there's a bit of a change coming to the studio in the near future, and I have a feeling that the screen might be seeing a replacement, but that's okay. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about this week, so let's get down to some news. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop or a tablet, maybe VR or AR headsets, or you're looking for some remote work from home technology like Microsoft Teams, there's a whole lot to be found at the Microsoft Store. And it's not just Microsoft branded stuff. There's games for your Xbox. There's Samsung phones and a whole lot more. And if you're an active student or military, you get a 10% discount on almost all products. And you can find all of that by going to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So, we've talked in the past, oftentimes from the perspective of gaming, about the side effects of cloud services. I'll age this back many years now to when EA shut down Playfish, and a whole bunch of games went with it that people had put money and time into. That was kind of the beginning of, some real public annoyance with the concept. Since then, we've seen all kinds of things from, little investments like games through big investments like a smart thermostat. When Johnson Controls took a lot of the features out of their glass thermostat maybe 6 months ago, the things that people had bought the product for. And this week we've got another product that has announced an end of life, and that is the Philips Hue Bridge. Now, it's important to note that it's the round one, not the square one. It's the first generation from 2012. Back then, the Philips Hue line only supported Zigbee. There was no Bluetooth in the ecosystem, so the only way to be able to communicate with the devices was through the hub. Why that was is beyond me. But since then, they continue to communicate with each other via Zigbee, but then you can also one-to-one control them via Bluetooth. But it does mean that with the end of support for the bridge, comes the end of cloud support for any products connected to it, which means that you won't be able to access your lights or anything like that when you're not directly connected to the bridge, which kind of defeats a lot of the purpose. And, I know technology is changing, especially in the smart home. Companies are learning lessons, and Philips was pretty early into the product category, right? Because that was 8 years ago that they released their first bridge. But it does show that a purchase may not be as long term of a purchase as things used to be, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems with smart home is that, well, I think people have a greater expectation for longevity of their home appliances than they do for longevity of their electronics.
Sure.
So this is something that kind of crosses over. Now, granted, the actual time span of how long people hold on to PCs and phones has gotten longer and longer as old stuff has gotten better to the point where maybe I don't need to replace my phone every 2 years. Maybe
Sure.
I don't need to replace my PC every 3. But the expectation with like home appliances is decades, right? I'm expecting to use, I'm hoping not to replace my washing machine for like 20 years. I'm hoping not to replace my hoping not to replace my dishwasher for like 20 years, whatever. So you buy a lighting set and then you lose the functionality on that lighting set after a certain number of years. You said it started in 2012. When was the last time they actually sold it?
So the second generation of the bridge came out in 2016. So there were 4 good years of sales of these bridges. So there's probably still a lot of them out there.
So people were buying these just 4 years ago, right? And so if you bought it 4 years ago, you lost support after 4 years. That's pretty bad. It really kind of calls attention to how much do I need support for what I'm doing. Does my stuff have to be constantly updated? Is this something where there's going to be issues? And I worry about any smart home device that is reliant on the cloud, right? That will only work in the cloud. So I do wonder, like, I have a bunch of smart sockets, smart outlets, right? And I gotta wonder, what if the companies that made them decide, I'm not gonna be bothered to support the one that I made 3, 4, 5 years ago. Sorry, or that company goes out of business, or somebody buys them and they don't feel an obligation to continue to support those devices. So it is frustrating that you could have devices that are end of life when it's something that you really need active support to continue working. If the company that makes my microwave oven stops supporting it, like, it doesn't matter, it's disconnected. But if the company that makes my my lights or my bulbs that control the lights, or the bridge that controls the bulb that controls the lights, um, stop supporting it, well, that's just really uncool.
Yeah.
So, um,
And look at,
I'm
you
not
know,
really sure what the
talking about, quick turnaround on dropping support. Look at it's kind of my new, the SimCity Social was my go-to for a long time, but I think the Johnson Controls Glass is going to be my go-to, my new one, because it was announced, I think January 4th of 2018. It didn't come out. It was supposed to come out in like March, and it didn't come out until like July or something like that. It premiered at $350 because, well, it has that transparent screen, which is beautiful, but it had Cortana built in. It had the ability to control, to then connect to Alexa through that. You could voice control the thermostat, have the temperature go up and down just by talking to the thermostat. You didn't have to have a smart speaker around or anything like that. So, $350 was a pretty good price for something like that. So that would have come out in like July of 2018. By September of 2019, they removed all the built-in voice commands. They removed Cortana. And all of a sudden, this $350 thermostat was just another thermostat. So that was like a little over a year before they abandoned all the things that were why people bought it.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I mean, I guess it's helpful if you look for things that are like that are somehow a direct connection,
Yep.
to they're somehow you can either control, I mean, that are not so dependent on a cloud service. I think certainly helps. But a lot of the better things out there are dependent on a cloud service.
Right.
So,
because it's,
I mean, I assume that even
that's part of how you get the ability to do things externally, right? Is by going through a thing. Not necessarily. You can open ports on your router and be able to have direct access to it, but not everybody's going to do that. we know that. Not everybody's going to do that. But so the easy way to solve that is through a cloud service, and that means you're dependent on whether or not that ecosystem continues to exist. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's also unfortunate because Philips is still around, so this would definitely leave a bad taste in my mouth if I was thinking of buying Philips Hue products. Like,
Sure.
this, not like the company went out of business.
Right.
They're still around. They're still selling updated products. So they could have chosen to maintain the support and just chose not to.
Yep, exactly. And the company, well, it's Philips Hue isn't made by Philips, and it's a licensed thing, but whatever. We'll continue. The company that manufactures the Philips Hue stuff said that the original device simply didn't have the resources needed for continued development or something like that. And I don't know what that means, because the statement was very short. I don't know what resources means. Does that mean there's only 16 people still using it, or does that mean that that the hardware isn't good enough to support whatever thing is coming in April? No idea. So that's annoying too, right? Because they could just leave it, right? And you get the features that you get, and then the new devices get new features. We see that all the time, right? Where older devices, with iPhones, or Android phones, you don't get the new operating system, but your email doesn't stop working.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is sort of akin to Pebble, right? Like you bought a Pebble smartwatch. I think they eventually came up with something where you could use it without the cloud support, so it wasn't a total brick.
Yeah.
But
And there were third-party
it's very
projects.
frustrating.
There were third-party projects that were working on making it so that you could use it third party. And maybe that's what we'll see with the bridge. Who knows? Maybe another company will come in and put something behind it. You know, it would be far from the first time that we've seen a company abandon a piece of hardware, especially a smart home piece of hardware, where the open source or the third party community didn't go, oh, we can bring that back to life. We even see it with games.
Could Amazon or Google step in?
I mean, potentially.
Could Amazon and Google,
potentially, but it would be a little. There'd be licensing and weird things because you're essentially gonna have to jailbreak the device. So the idea, you're gonna have to get around the built-in software. So it's more likely to be some aftermarket type thing. But maybe we'll see. It's not. It's never easy for a user to do. To put aftermarket firmware on.
It seems to me that for a lot of people, Alexa, their Alexa speaker or their Google Assistant is the hub for their smartphone, for their smart home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you could control it, I think, if the cloud service isn't working, but you can still control it via your smart speaker, then you pretty much have what you need, right?
True, and that's an important aspect of it, is that the when you're internal to your network through the phone app, because the version 1 and the version 2 devices have different apps, which brings me back to there's already 2 versions of the software, but you'll be able to open the V1 software and still be able to control it from your phone internally. You just won't be able to do it externally unless you have a VPN back to your home, but that's a whole different beast of a thing. And
right.
The way Google and Alexa things work is they tend to make the calls to a server. There might be a way to get around it if the thing reported as a server. It's an interesting idea. It's definitely worth looking into. But it's something that we see again. The Johnson Controls thing was such a big product, and it never went anywhere. And this was a huge thing. They were the Philips Hue was kind of the originator of consumer LED bulbs, especially for multicolor, and for the control units to start going away. My guess is a lot of people are just going to upgrade to a V2, but then you've also got that whole maybe I don't want to. So at least with the V2, and this is important, at least with the V2, it adds features like HomeKit into them so that commands can be issued from Apple direct to the device, which is very different. So even if they stop supporting this one in the future, some stuff, Siri control and stuff like that will continue to work. So the V2 has a little bit more longevity than the V1. The V1 was out before any of these things existed, so it's not a surprise that it missed the majority of the technology. So it's unfortunate, but it's kind of the industry we live in. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. When you're online, a great way to keep your browsing habits private, whether it be from Google and Facebook or even your ISP, is by using a VPN. It obfuscates all of your usage. And right now, PureVPN's got a great deal, 2 years of service for $3.33 a month. You get all of the abilities of the VPNs, plus you get the ability to report your location, so you can use things like Hulu when you're out of town and things like that. And to find out more about PureVPN and to get this deal right now, you can go to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. So we talked earlier, Avram, that a lot of us are going to start seeing more remote work. Likely, we've seen concerts and trade shows and all kinds of stuff start getting canceled. It's not unlikely that we'll start seeing work getting canceled, right? Microsoft's already shut down one of their buildings. No joke.
Right. Didn't Facebook also say employees should work from home?
Mm-hmm, I think so.
So obviously there are many jobs in this world that you cannot do from home. You can't, cook food from home. You can't,
build a stage,
manufacturing or merchandise, or, perform in a play or whatever from home. There's but there's a fair number of knowledge worker type of jobs that people can work from home. And of course, there are people who not only do they want to work from home, they have to work from home. They have to work from home because if not, they would, they're nowhere near the office, or maybe they work for a company that doesn't even have an office. So,
true,
no doubt. But for me, I'm one of the fortunate people in our tech journalism industry who actually has a company that has an office that I can go into, and I do go in every day, barring some kind of extraordinary circumstance. I usually, maybe if I had to, pick up my son from school because my wife couldn't do it, or something like that, or I wasn't feeling super well, or I had a doctor's appointment around or near my house, then yeah, I can work from home. But as the situation with the coronavirus gets worse, I think there's a lot of businesses that are going to follow the lead of some of the companies in Seattle and say, hey, we're gonna like make it mandatory for our workers to work from home for a while, or for workers who can possibly do their jobs to work from home for a while. So I wanted to sort of share some advice that I have from the days that I do work from home. And, as I said, I love to get other people's advice on ways to be more effective when working from home. So some of the things that, that are kind of obvious are, you got to try and make your home environment as much like an office work environment as you can. Now, some folks are living in, small spaces, and they can't carve out a dedicated room or a particularly strong dedicated, narrow dedicated space for home office. But if you can, then you should. And if that space is maybe, a corner in your living room or something like that, then that's what it's got to be. But you got to try and carve out a space if you can. You also have to try and treat each day, you have to try and treat the schedule and method of going to work as you would if you were actually getting in the car or on the train or on the bus to go to work. So that means take your shower like you would, put on your nice clothes for work. Don't work in your pajamas. And have a good setup. It obviously helps to have multiple monitors. If you only have, this would help even in the office, but obviously having 2 or 3 monitors is ideal, if not more. These days, you can get a really good 24, 27-inch monitor for just over $100. So it's not too late. If you think you might be forced to work from home soon, to order yourself an extra monitor or two. Um, Certainly, if you
Obviously, make sure
have a
that your
lap,
computer supports that.
well, that's what I'm getting to next.
Ah,
So a lot of people, I would say most people who are working from home, particularly if you work for if you're not your own boss and you work for a company, you probably have a laptop. That is probably your work tool, your work computer of choice. And connecting your laptop to your monitors and your keyboard and your mouse can be um, prohibitive, particularly if you don't have the right wires. So my advice is get a USB docking station. Um, you can get a USB docking station for as little as $80 that will allow you to connect your with through one connection, connect your laptop to your peripherals like your keyboard, mouse, and webcam, and to multiple monitors. And that way, all you need do when you want to take your laptop and pick it up and take it to work with you once you get back to your office, or you want to go to the coffee shop or whatever, is unplug a single wire. It's ideal if your laptop charges over USB Type C, that you get a dock that does USB Type C charging, so that you don't even need to plug in a separate cord for power. You get both your power and all your data out over a single port, which is what I have here. Um, so so having the equipment, having the hardware, maintaining the time. Um, One thing that's a really big problem in working from home, and this is a problem for me, is distractions. Um, and one way to deal with that is to make sure you limit distractions on the computer itself. So I have a Google Chrome extension I like to use called Stay Focused, which is, I think focused is spelled wrong. It's like FOCUSD, Stay Focused. And that allows you to set work hours and then block websites that you would be tempted to go to that are not part of your work. So, put in Facebook, put in Twitter, um, and it will block those for it will block you from seeing them. And then when you try to go to them during work hours on your computer, it will say, shouldn't you be working now? We're all ingenious at getting around that if we want to, because you still have your phone, you could uninstall it. I mean, but so at some point you have to exercise your own discipline, but whatever you can do to create that feel is important. I also think when you have meetings with colleagues, trying to do them over video, um, try instead of just talking to people via instant message, uh, and if you can do video rather than just voice, it definitely feels more like being with other folks. uh, if, like me, you have a family that you share or pets that you share your house with, you got to do whatever is in your power to keep them out of your workspace. And you have to be very uh, tough on them in terms of, like, pretend I'm not here during the workday. Now, I have to say, that's always a work in progress between me and my family, because I'll have that talk and they'll still be not pretending that I'm not here. So and that'll be a variety of things. It's either my son coming and knock on my office door when I'm in the middle of working, or me making the mistake of getting up to go to the bathroom, and then or go get a snack, and then they're like, oh, hey, since you're up, can you go do this? So um so I think you got to do whatever you can to put your foot down with family, about for when you're working from home. It is difficult. And I think another thing is just try and make your workspace as as much like a real professional office as possible. If you can get a work style, a chair, a professional office chair, desk, you know, try to, you know, clean it up if you can so it looks more like you've come to a professional place. Whatever you can do to get yourself in the office mindset while you're at home is what you should do. Um, Obviously, work from home also can also be used to say work from somewhere else, like a coffee shop. And if you're not working on a network that you trust, like your home network, uh, for sure you should be using VPN um, so that other people can't pick up on your work. You know, hacking into the Wi-Fi. So those are just a few tips that I have for working from home. I think really the key is, and at least this is a key for me, do whatever you can to minimize distractions and to make it feel more like you're in the office. Uh, you know, by modifying your environment, modifying yourself, putting on the clothes, and you know, trying whatever you can do to to prevent distraction.
And oh, excuse me, as somebody who has worked from home for, I don't know, when did we shut the sumo office down? 4 or 5 years ago, right? And so I've been working from home for that whole time. Yeah, the transition can be difficult if you're not prepared for it, if you don't have a plan in place. You know, obviously, I know you said have, you know, an extra monitor or two. Obviously, my overkill of 6 is its own thing.
I mean, I'd like to have that.
And if you count the MacBook that I use for Xamarin builds, I guess there's technically 7. It is a bit of a crazy setup, but development sometimes requires that because you know that feeling that you're working with somebody, right? You know, for years I have one screen that has been just for my business partner Mark. He and I would be on Skype together basically all day as if we were sitting next to each other in the office, and so one screen was just Mark. And even if we didn't talk to each other,
that's very interesting.
even if we didn't talk to each other for most of the day, we were there. We had the connection open anyway, as if he was sitting at the desk next to me, which was the situation. You know, we worked together for when did we start sumo? 2008, I think. So, you know, worked together for 12 years, 6 years at that point, 7 years at that point. You know, you get used to being able to just lean over and go, hey, what does this look like? And so we tried to keep that, and that helped. Oh, that helped a lot.
See, I've thought it's funny you mentioned that because I've talked about that a lot at work at the office where I'm very fortunate that we have you know, for Tom's Hardware we have maybe half of our staff is in the New York office with me, and then half
Yeah.
are remote and work out of their homes. And we've talked a lot about the people who are working out of their homes. Uh, what are they missing? And could we set up like a little telepresence station where they like, you know, where we set up like, and I could do this maybe even with a Raspberry Pi, set up something where they're just dialed in all day and they had like a wide angle camera and could see what we were doing and vice versa. And uh, the coworkers who at least work with me there in the office said, "Oh, that would be terrible. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work very well. They will want their privacy. Not that the people who remote people and we got to the point of actually discussing whether they would be willing to do it. Um, you know, they want their privacy, it'll be annoying for them to hear all of the noise that's in this office. How did you deal with that?
Each of us were working from home. It was just one-on-one. So there wasn't any background. There wasn't any, and we've both got dedicated space for, I've got a whole office set up. Obviously, you don't have a rig with 7 screens just willy-nilly. And Mark has that same home setup that's just workspace. Because when you do it full time, having a place that you can walk out of and close the door at the end of the day signifies that the workday is over. Which is important for me.
Yeah, it's important to have that space because then you also know when you're leaving that space.
Right. So your day can end. Your work day can end. There's no mix of what is home and what is work. You have that ability to say, work is done, close the door. And that was important for us. And so, when we're in our offices and, the day begins, we have our morning meeting, then we jump on Skype together. We haven't in a little while because he changed jobs. But have our morning meeting, jump on Skype, work together until the day was over, and then see ya, end Skype. I imagine that there is a log somewhere in Microsoft of the bizarreness that was, 55 hours a week of Mark and I with an open Skype connection. But I imagine they're aware of us because it's got to be a weird situation. But it worked for us. If you don't have that totally dedicated environment, it might be a problem. But being dedicated space, there wasn't a privacy issue because the only thing that was happening in that space was us working. So,
right. I mean, and that's what I would kind of figure. But all I can say is I've really often admired, and these things cost like thousands and thousands of dollars and probably don't really make sense for what I would want to do. But telepresence robots, when people get a telepresence robot and they literally have like a little robot that can have their face on it and roll around the office, and if I'm not there, and that's why that's the reason the most why I hate working from home is not just the distractions, but I feel like I'm missing something really important when that might be going on there. Now, I won't feel quite the same if we're all working from home.
Sure.
Then we're all in the same boat. But if you could have a telepresence robot, that would be cool. But I think obviously that doesn't scale. You're not going to put a robot in Mark's house to sit next to him.
Oh, that would be amazing, though. I'm not going to lie. I kind of love that idea.
Although, did you ever see? And I'll leave it at this because I know we got other stuff to talk about. But did you ever see the movie Surrogates with Bruce Willis?
I don't think so.
Not a good film, but this whole situation with the coronavirus made me think about it. It's the near future, and nobody leaves the house because they consider going out of the house too dangerous, not because of a virus or whatever. Just people have gotten the impression going out of the house is dangerous. So everybody has robots that look like them, that they control, that they sit in like this thing that looks like a coffin that's like a VR, and they just control their robot. Their robot goes to work, their robot like sits next to people, whatever, and they're remote controlling the very human looking robot all day long.
Oh, I'm reading the synopsis on IMDb right now.
Yes. Well, as a lifestyle, it's probably not cool, but as remote work, it would be awesome.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting idea, and we see the telepresence robots and things like that at CES every year. Some of them big and elaborate, and some of them are iPads on a stick, but we've seen a whole variety of them. I remember distinctly Nick doing an interview, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago with, I think it was a woman, and he did it through the telepresence robot, which was a tremendous amount of fun. But we don't see them out in the wild very often, although they're starting to become mainstream enough that there's a Bob's Burgers episode about it. So I mean, the concept is a little more mainstream today than it was 6 years ago, 8 years ago when we did that interview. But well, definitely appreciate it. And as somebody, like I said, who's done this for the last 5 or 6 years, there's definitely things, and those are all the things that I did when I got started to try and avoid the slump of, well, I'm at home, I guess I could also be doing laundry. No, don't fall into that trap. You are at work. So like Avram said, the less distractions, the more like you can feel like you're in an office, the better. So I definitely appreciate that, and I know anybody who's about to be working from home will appreciate it as well, Avram. And are we gonna have content on this?
I think so. I think I'll have up some tips this week on Tom's Hardware about working from home, and I'm still working on it. So if anybody has any other tools, particular, I want to obviously look more at the tools angle.
Sure.
That they need to work for, that they like working from home. I'd love to hear about it.
For sure. So if you have suggestions, if you're watching live, let us know. If you're not, either find us on Facebook at Piltch Point or tweet at PLUGHITZ Live with your ideas, and we will make sure that they get incorporated. And as always, Avram, thank you, and I look forward to what we talk about next. This week's Extra Life in F5 Live is proudly powered by Razer. All the accessories you need to up your game on PC and console are available from the Razer store. Whether you're looking for a keyboard and mouse like we use here in the studio, or you're looking for a full system like the Razer Blade laptops, you can find them all. And there's always new products coming out, like the new Hammerhead Duo earbuds, or the Viper Mini mouse, and a whole lot more. And you can find all of that by going to f5live.tv/Razer. So obviously we talk about, especially from a conceptual standpoint, we talk about eSports a lot because they have become a big part of the gaming industry. And that's a good thing. They've, given birth to services like Twitch and Mixer, both of which we use for our show, and a whole lot of gaming specific hardware like we get from Razer. But unlike what I would call traditional sports, they have some challenges that are very unique. In particular, the whole remote access aspect of it. The fact that for most games to be able to play against each other, there's a matchmaking server or something in the mix so that you can pair up and play against each other. Well, the companies that administer these competitions are trying to figure out how to deal with that because, if there's no rules, you have the ability to go, well, we can't figure it out. We can't connect. I can't find him. And then you delay the game for however long, and that's not fair to the other people playing, and all kinds of other things, right? So, here's what happened this week. a FIFA 2020 qualifying competition had an issue where two competitors could not find each other on the server to be able to start a game. Now, if it was Avram and I just going to play a game of FIFA 2020, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. When you're talking in the professional eSports realm, there's rules. And so the rule from EA is that within 20 minutes, if you're not able to connect, both parties will get a loss for the match. So if you're in say a double elimination match, that's halfway to being out of the competition. So there's also a way to override that. And the way is, before time is up, you can play a game of rock, paper, scissors, and the winner wins. And that is possibly one of the crazier things. That's like being in the NFL and Fox can't get one of their TV cameras to work, and so the coin flip decides the game. That's crazy. Because
what is the rationale from EA for EA?
It was. I don't know. On why it's Rochambeau or why it's there in the first place.
Yeah.
Why it's Rochambeau?
Because it's both. I mean, it's their fault.
Right, and that's the thing. It's something that's completely out of the control of the competition. It's completely out of the control of the players. It's completely out of the control of the tournament runners. And so, that's why my NFL analogy isn't, that one of the team's headsets isn't working, because that's an internal thing. Fox's camera doesn't work. Oh, well, I guess we're just going to have to flip a coin. Why Rochambeau? It's easy to administer. It's quick. It usually doesn't take more than 2 or 3 tries for somebody to win. But why? I mean, I understand why you've got to have a thing in place, right? So that it's not 2 people trying to delay the game. But I don't know. It seems crazy. It seems like the kind of thing that would be easy to test, right? That somebody from the staff could sit down and go, nope, you're absolutely right. We can't see. Neither person can see the other one. Let's get the next match running while we try to figure this out. That seems like the way it should work, right? But no, definitely not the way it works. It's crazy to me.
So is this so now, was EA actually responsible for the tournament, or are they just playing an EA game?
Nope. It is a 100% EA sanctioned competition.
Yeah, so I mean, it's their responsibility. And so and if you really think that people should just be able to be eliminated because of a technical issue that is the publisher's fault, then why have this ridiculous system of rock, paper, scissors to decide who wins? In that case, then they should both lose, but really they shouldn't be able to do this. Like, EA should solve the problem. But if it's taking 20 minutes, what shouldn't tech support have been involved before then?
You would think. The details of the situation are still pretty vague, because the information on what happened is coming mostly from the player who lost the rock, paper, scissors.
Right.
And he basically said he's done with the game. Now, whether or not that will stick is, another thing. In the moment, you can get mad and want to break something, but 2 days later, you're like, all right, yeah, that sucked. Let's move on. But he was mad enough that his exact words were, "I am done," and he tagged EA, and both the EA Sports FIFA account and the EA FIFA Direct account, and told them, "I'm out." That's not a good thing for esports as they're trying to build their reputation. It's not good for EA as they're trying to hold on to whatever little reputation they've got left, with FIFA kind of being the only game that people aren't constantly mad at this point. And here we have them screwing up over there too. So it's not good for anybody. Hopefully, a better process can be put into place, right? Because again, we're still in the birth years of this stuff, right? Yes, professional gaming's been around for a couple of decades, but not like the last couple of years. We're really in the birth phase of an actual economy of esports, and so everybody's just trying to figure it out. In the old days, if you were playing, Warcraft 2, you didn't have any of this because it was all local matchmaking. But trying to deal with a thing where you're connecting out, again, back to the benefits of the cloud, right? You're connecting outside of your controlled environment. Now you've got all kinds of weird overhead over top of it, and they're just trying to figure it out. They haven't. Obviously, they haven't, and I think that's the important takeaway here. They haven't figured out how to do it right. I don't think they ever thought this was going to have to come into play in all reality. And yet, here we are. So hopefully they'll come up with something better for next time around, because that sucks. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by RiffTrax. Make fun of movies or let these guys do it for you. Mike Nelson, Bill Corbett, and Kevin Murphy, the former stars of Mystery Science Theater 3000, are back and doing what they do best, creating commentaries for Hollywood blockbusters and B-movie oddities like Lady Mobster. The way it works is for a couple of dollars, you download the MP3, play it along with your DVD, Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu, wherever the movie happens to exist, and laugh. From time to time, they do live events. They have 2 of them officially scheduled now for 2020. The Kickstarter is still running, and if you want to get some of the extra perks, it is running right now. And of course, there are short films as well. And to find out what short films, what feature films, and what live events are coming, you can go to f5live.tv/rifftracks with an X. So we talked about the coronavirus and the Piltch point. We talked about, that a lot of people are going to potentially be working from home. We already see Microsoft. We've seen, I think, Facebook. Google has, I think, one of their offices where they're encouraging the hourly workers not to come in. But on the other side of things, we have the people who are trying to take advantage of the situation, right? You've got your online price gougers. You've got disinformation and things like that. And so a lot of the tech companies who, on one hand, have spearheaded the work from home response are also responding directly to these problems and doing it in a pretty decent way. The retailers, Amazon and eBay, Amazon almost immediately started taking listings down and banning sellers for, believe it or not, there were over 1 million coronavirus cures available on Amazon that they've taken down. Then they started taking down inflated price products and banning those sellers as well. eBay followed suit by seeing that there was price gouging going on eBay, and so they went the extra step and said, for right now, you cannot sell face masks or hand sanitizer on eBay, period. And then Amazon came back and said, all right, so the people who were price gouging, we are prosecuting. And they've been working with attorneys general all over the country to prosecute sellers who, the worst of the worst, the worst offenders, who were price gouging on products. Apple has gone so far as to pull apps from their app stores. Basically, any of the coronavirus trackers that are not from official sources have been pulled because it was found that a lot of them were feeding misinformation or possibly disinformation, which is an important distinction, through the apps. And then Facebook has updated its advertising policy that you cannot advertise medical masks on Facebook anymore for right now. It's a temporary thing. They don't want to push people to other sites other than Amazon and eBay that are price gouging. They don't want to add to the hysteria by people paying to make things worse. I think all of those things are impressive and quick responses to threats that didn't exist a week ago. What do you think, Avram?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing a lot of companies do the responsible thing, which is great. These companies don't always do the responsible thing.
Sure.
When it comes to other aspects of their business, it's kind of impressive to see what's happening, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and people are going to try and take advantage. And there's this, like the mask situation. I mean, I keep reading things that say masks don't. The only reason to have a mask is if you're sick, and you want to, and it may help you avoid spreading spreading. It is help you save somebody else, but I'm seeing in New York a ton of people wearing masks.
May is an important aspect of it, because the masks that actually do something are essentially you're taught as part of your medical training how to wear them, because they're not easy.
Right.
You have to fit them just right to your cheekbones, and like you don't just like put it on like you see on ER or something. You're like, oh, yep, mask is on, let's go. It's a process of making sure that everything fits just right, and you and I don't have that training. Even if we had the right masks, we're not going to be able to wear them, right?
Right. But it's weird because you have a lot of there's a lot of if you think that just a few lone individuals who have that belief, no, I mean I think so. I was reading this week, and it was really quite illuminating and kind of frightening. An account from a company that is located in Shenzhen, China.
Okay.
And this was for like a Kickstarter, and they were trying to explain this company is coming out with like a speaker that teaches you Chinese or something.
Okay.
And they were trying to explain why the launch is delayed. And normally with Kickstarter, people don't explain, or they come up with really lame excuses why their product's delayed. But in this case, the person running it wrote like a really long explanation of everything that is going on in that area, which, by the way, is not the quarantine area. That's Wuhan. So one of the things that he said was that if you if you're out in public not wearing a mask, you could get a fine. So I find that weird because we were just talking about how they're not that helpful, if at all. And if this account is to be believed, in certain places in China, you actually would get in trouble with a law for not wearing one.
Yep.
You
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's absolutely crazy.
By the same token, we at Tom's Hardware are keeping a list of all the shows that have been canceled, all the tech shows that have been canceled, and one that, at least as of last I checked, hasn't been canceled yet is Computex. Now, Computex, for those who don't know, I go to it every year, is the trade show in Taiwan, and this year it's to take place the first week of June, which is still a couple months out. But Tytra, the organization that runs the show, put out a very, odd, disturbing statement, I think 2 weeks ago, saying, right now the show is still on, but we will expect everybody to wear masks, and we expect you to take your temperature or have your temperature taken, which suggests that they might actually have somebody at the hall just going around taking people's temperatures. I've also read somewhere that in mainland China, which is not to be confused with Taiwan, that there are fast food restaurants where they won't let you into the restaurant until they've scanned your temperature. But that's also sort of contrary to scientific evidence, because you could be a carrier of the disease and have no temperature. Or you could have a temperature for some other reason. But so there's just a lot of very simplistic views, of how to prevent this that really don't hold up to logical scrutiny.
Yeah.
Certainly these companies shouldn't be allowing people to profit off of them.
For sure. And so it's good to see that companies, Amazon, eBay, Apple, Facebook, and a whole lot more, actively doing things to prevent the spread of nonsense. I wish, honestly, and I wish Google would follow Facebook's example here, because I cannot tell you, since I wrote this article, how many other tech publications I've been to that use Google Ads that I have seen face mask ads through Google today. It's been absolutely insane, because it's picking up on the things that I was writing. But I would very much like Google to follow suit, because it's not better. This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. If you've got a subscription, you know you get free shipping, sometimes same day, depending on what you're ordering. But you may not know that you get things like free music with Amazon Prime Music, or free TV, movies, documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, and of course, free games with Twitch Prime. In addition, you also get a free subscription on Twitch every month that you can use to help support the content creator of your choice. You could subscribe to PLUGHITZ Live and help us out, or anybody else that you watch on a regular basis. And if you're not a subscriber, we've got a 30-day free trial, plus links to find all of these features and a whole lot more, all by going to f5live.tv/prime. So obviously, Avram, you and I have talked many times about the benefits of 5G and where that might happen. There's been a lot of talk about it, and we struggled in some cases to find, where some of the excitement was. Obviously, one of the main use cases that we've been able to talk about is the ability to for some of the cellular companies to offer competing services to what is oftentimes a monopoly on internet service providers at your home or office. For me at home, I have one choice because my apartment complex has a deal with the local cable company. So even though there are technically 3 choices in my area, I can only have one. So, with 4G, we saw the attempt, especially from Clearwire, for home internet service, but it never went anywhere, and the company went out of business. But then with 5G, the actual stability, the speeds, the range are different than 4G was. And so there's the potential that it could actually be a benefit. But it's important to remember that it is a cellular connection still. And so, especially in testing, we're seeing some problems. And one of those problems is that the Hulu plus live TV doesn't work. So if you're subscribed to Hulu with live TV, do not sign up for one of these betas, one of these 5G at home tests, because you will lose that ability because it's still a cellular connection. And so far, nobody has figured out how to report it as otherwise. And so that feature turns off. It's not the only one. There are others. And in fact, through T-Mobile, T-Mobile is actually the one who put this out. They've been testing their T-Mobile at home in a residential area of about 50,000 homes. And they have warned people that some streaming services, including the Hulu with live TV, will not work now and until maybe forever. So that's an interesting situation. Obviously, if T-Mobile were to figure out a way to report it as a home connection, then we could probably just alter our Android phones to make the same report, right? And so all of a sudden the hotspot doesn't have the same limitation. It seems like there's going to be a problem that's not going to be particularly straightforward to fix, right?
Well, I don't understand why this is any of Hulu's business. What method of internet I'm using to access their service? What's their rationale for trying to stop you from using it with a hotspot?
In Hulu's case, it has to do with licensing. I don't quite understand how the licensing works. I do remember that there was a period of time where Netflix on a hotspot wouldn't work either. And I mean, that's aging it out many, many years. But Netflix always said that it was a licensing issue. And my guess is that it's the same thing now with the Hulu with Live. But I don't know 100% for sure. Because Hulu hasn't responded on the topic, other than to say correct. But yeah, they don't.
It's just weird because I mean,
I know.
Internet is internet. Like what? I mean, they have other ways. Like, what license could it be? I mean, there's regional issues where, I can't go and Netflix in England and Netflix here have different stuff. Mm-hmm. And I can't go and use the BBC iPlayer because I'm not in the UK.
Right.
And people often use VPN to get around that kind of situation. But I don't understand how this would be a problem because you're using 5G is still like Hulu plus live TV is a US, or at least I don't know if it's all over the world, but it's a US service here in the US that gives you US live TV.
Yes.
So you're not going to use you're not going to use a hotspot. It can detect your region unless you spoof it. And presumably any of the places that these people are using the 5G service, they could also just as easily be attached, dialed into a router that was, and that would be okay. So if it was fine with a router, why is it not fine with a hotspot, which is just another router?
Totally agreed.
I mean,
I'm
it just
100% with you. It's so bizarre, but it's not the first time that this has been the case. In Netflix's case, it's been gone for a long time. In fairness, a very long time. But I remember trying to fire it up on a computer with a hotspot in a hotel many years ago, and it's going, nope, can't do it, not on a hotspot. And Netflix said that it was a licensing issue back then, so it's weird.
Now, I understand some apps on my phone like try to like warn me if I download stuff and I'm not on Wi-Fi, right? Like
Sure.
I try to download, if I try to download like for offline, viewing, I try to download some like Netflix shows, and I'm not on Wi-Fi. I think I have to like give it permission, or like, no, it's okay. I want to use my cellular data for this. But they're trying to do me a favor,
Right.
to avoid hitting a data cap, or if I had limited data, paying extra for that data.
Right.
But this doesn't look like Hulu's doing the end user a favor at all.
No, not at all. And, it obviously brings up two different issues. The first is, why in the world is Hulu not allowing you to do this on a hotspot? Bizarre. Possibly licensing, possibly heavy-handedness. I don't know, because they haven't said why, but it is strange. And then it also brings up, the possibility that, Hulu is not the only service that's doing this. There might be other things that are, non-Wi-Fi or hotspot. And, if you go with a service like this, you might encounter additional issues unless there's a way to make the router report as a home device. And then once you do that, anything that exists is spoofable. I think we all know that. And so we could end up, just spoofing it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a workaround for this. For one, VPN would probably be a workaround for it. I assume that VPN, they can't tell what type of connection you have.
Yeah, probably.
So VPN would be one workaround, but you'd have to have the VPN if you were using this with like a set-top box.
Right.
I mean, doing it on a PC or a phone or a tablet, you could use VPN, and that would be your workaround. Although, if you want, unlimited data and a really good quality VPN, then you're going to have to pay for it. That's
Right.
additional money that you're spending to get this service that you're already paying for.
And not a small amount.
That's
Hulu with live TV is not inexpensive. I think it starts at $45.
right. I do really wonder how they're even getting that data, because I don't think it's in your browser user agent string. So are they getting it from your IP or something?
I believe that it's reported, actually, as part of the handshake. I'm not positive on that, but I think that it is. It's not ever been anything I've cared about, but I think it is.
Yeah, I'm sure that there is a workaround for this,
and they'll figure it out. The service is still in beta.
But I'm sure there's a workaround for people who have it now and want to find their or just have a 5G or 4G hotspot and want to use it, that do what Hulu doesn't want them to do. I'm sure there's a workaround. A VPN would almost certainly solve the problem, but you overall, this is just a really poor policy to have.
Agreed. And hopefully, as the idea of home and mobile internet, that line blurs more and more. Like I said, Clearwire tried to blur it a number of years ago, but it didn't very much. 5G is going to have that ability to blur it a lot more. And as that comes around, maybe we'll see some of these things start to fall away. But for right now, it is what it is, I guess. And that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. If you didn't and would like to in the future, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us. And there you can listen live, you can watch live, you can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics. For example, letting us know if you have any ideas on what could make working from home an easier process for you. You could let us know that. If you listened live and would like to subscribe for the future, or you would just like to subscribe, you can go to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe and find all the ways to do that. You can also find all of our social media from there. And we'd, again, love to hear what you have to say about suggestions on working from home. So definitely let us know that. A reminder that this Friday, we will be at the Orlando First Robotics Competition Regional, broadcasting live from there. Then Sunday night, we'll be back in the studio like normal, doing our show. And so if you can join us Friday, we would love it. That same link will get you there. And so I guess with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you guys back next time. Ciao.